Many people have problems with art and not with reality.
A way to sort of cause trouble.
Yeah, it does something strange with your head.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair.
Bring it.
Yeah, all right, welcome back. Episode 36. I am Ando, and I am the host of this show. Please join us. I bid you welcome. Yeah, it's the dog days of summer here. People are outside enjoying it, and I'm just sleepy. But I got time off of work. It's trying to make stuff happen here, and also to perform some vacation. Kind of a nice mix, I'm hoping, of all that. So the votes are in. The theme music is going to stay for the time being. We tooled it around a little bit, try to make it less me and more you guys. If you have any strong feelings about it, you're still welcome to send in your comments. We got a great guest on the show today. We got Maja Lee Langvad. She is a Danish writer, poet, and debater. She's a Korean adoptee, grew up here in Denmark, of course, and has written 3 books, often based around her experience. I guess I shouldn't say experience, but around her life as an adoptee. But also tackling greater themes about belonging and nationality and, obviously touches a lot on Denmark. I think this is an interesting episode for people who aren't from Denmark because it talks about Denmark from a different perspective, you could say. But my whole point with the thing is she is just as Danish as anybody else. So, I don't want to say dissonant, but voices are important in any culture and time, and she's got a lot to say. So we were thankful to have her on the show. We got a great talk. Our theme today is about anger. Her newest book is called She is Angry. And, she is angry, but she uses it as a tool to write a book. She doesn't use it as an emotion for venting. And, anger is an interesting topic. Being of the Protestant Northern European stock that I am, I was kind of raised thinking that anger wasn't a very good emotion, that it was a sign of weakness almost. And I'm slowly learning as an adult that anger does have a function. It can be used like all emotions for the good and for the bad. And so I think it's a relevant topic for today's talk. This talk maybe gets a little dark. We are talking about adoption, race, anger, nationalism. But, there's also a lot of humor in her writing, which is definitely helps the work remain relevant and not just, angry person writing. We all know that work. The angry person who needs to get it out and just kind of vomits it out onto the page. Luckily, Maja is a craft person. She knows what she's doing. And we're lucky enough to even have her at the end read up some of her work, translated to English, obviously, but some of her pieces she reads up for us. So we're excited about this talk, and we don't really have much else to talk about. Hard work, good times, a little bit of summer. Go see Julie Nord's show at Kunstforening Gammelstrand. That's a mouthful for you English speakers, I know. You can find a link in the show notes from last week with our episode with Julie Nord. It's a great show. And without patting ourselves on the back too much, it's a really good episode. If you guys didn't catch it yet, check it out. All right, please enjoy the talk with Maja. Do you work at home usually?
Yeah, I do. I usually write at home.
Is it hard to separate home and work?
Yeah, especially because I have a very small apartment, so I have only one big table where I work and also eat and do everything. Have guests, and yeah, so that's a little annoying. I would love to have a bigger apartment or just a separate room to work in.
Do you ever think about getting an office or something, or like a writing space?
Yeah, but the thing is that I think actually it would be cheaper to just have a bigger apartment than to rent an office space. Because if I need to have a room where I can close the door, I wouldn't be able, I think, to write.
Sit with other people.
No.
I wanted to just ask a little bit, like, how did your reading go in Greenland?
Yeah, it went really well. I was so glad that I had the opportunity to go there. The first time I was there was in 2006, where I was invited to this literary festival. But that was, me and some other writers from the Nordic countries were there, so we kind of just hang out together.
Right.
But this time I got to meet lots of writers and artists and great people from Greenland. So that was a very different experience, and I got to know much more about the history and the political situation. And
how did it happen? Did your publisher set it up, or?
No, it's actually a writer from Greenland who I met at a festival here in Copenhagen in the spring. She arranged it, because my first book, Find Holger Dansk, or in English it would be Finding Holger Dane.
Mm-hmm.
I know that lots of people in Greenland who study like literature and so on, that they read this book, and then and they use it in the school there. So there's some people who already know about my work. So I could totally feel that there was some kind of connection between me and some of the writers from there.
Right. Well, it's kind of interesting. We were talking a little earlier about how there is that weird in-between third space, and how you kind of felt connected to Greenland in that way. It's so fascinating. Yeah,
that in some ways I feel more at home there than I do in Denmark or in Korea.
Do you think that they feel like they're in some sort of third space in their own country? I mean, because there is kind of a weird colonial situation. I mean, nobody really knows in the rest of the world that, of course, some people know, but it's, it's not common knowledge that it's a colony of Denmark, essentially. And Denmark did all the things that colonists do. They come and try to make people Christian, and they, set up schools and make them speak Danish, and, and that's still kind of going on, even though there is, in theory, self-rule. I mean,
but it really changed, because at the moment the government in Greenland, they're very like nationalistic and very like against Denmark. But of course, still Greenland is like, there are people there who speaks only Danish and people who speak only Greenlandish. So it is like a bilingual country.
Right.
So that's like the situation, even though that the government tries to push for more like authentic, whatever that is, Greenlandic culture and so on.
Well, that's the fucked up thing about colonialism is you can't just cut that line. There is forever a connection. Well, not, maybe not forever, but there's this connection between the countries, which is not just political anymore. But what's the writing scene like there?
Well, we talked about that. What Greenland really, what could be really great to have in Greenland was a writer's school, like you have in Denmark or in Sweden or in Norway. Cause there are people there, young people who write, and the one who arranged this trip for me, she's a upcoming writer in Greenland. She's going to publish a book soon. But I mean, I had the feeling that it needs some kind of, community.
Like an infrastructure too, or something.
Yeah, and a school and a place to meet each other.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, they have a university, right?
Yeah, there's a university where you can study, like, I think it's language, communication, media, something like that.
But I guess it's pretty limited in terms of...
It is. I mean, but they have recently they got a theater school.
Oh, that's good.
And they also have a like music school. So I think that was what Niviak, the one who arranged my trip, she said that we really need a writer's school too.
Well, it seems like that would be a next logical step. So if they offered you a teaching position at this future writing school? Would you go do it?
I talked with Divyak about that we should do it together. That would be great. That would be an opportunity for me to go back to Greenland and stay there for a longer time.
Have you thought about teaching?
Not really. I mean, I've taught like just I've never been like a what's called regular teacher, but
right, you've been like a workshops leader or something. Yeah,
exactly. But not much. I haven't taught much.
Is it scary?
I don't know. I mean, I taught last summer. I taught a week at Biskopsarnö. It's close to Stockholm. I'm going to teach there again this summer. It's like this 1 week course for young people from all the Nordic countries, also Greenland actually, and it's kind of interesting also because it's like so many languages. We have to find a way to teach people who speak different languages and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably also makes you think about your own work in a slightly different light when you teach. But I think it must be draining too. I mean, even like you're saying, you have to do it in different languages.
I mean, some writers, I know when I went to the writer school here in Copenhagen, I know some of my teachers that they were not really able to write themselves while they were teaching at the school. That's
kind of what I'm thinking.
Because it's like, and you get all these inputs and from the students, which is great, but also, it might make you like too exhausted to go home and do your own writing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go back. You were born in Korea. Mm-hmm. Came to Denmark when you were 3 months old, correct? Mm-hmm. I've done a little bit of homework here. Mm-hmm. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Copenhagen. From I was 5 on, I grew up here.
Okay. A true Copenhagener.
Yeah.
There's not very many of you guys. I mean, there is now, but back in the day, people would always move to the suburbs.
That's true.
Yeah. Where in Copenhagen?
We moved around, but first I lived in Østerbro with my mother, and then we moved to Christianshavn. Okay. So most of the time we were, those two places.
Yeah. Was that, does that mean that you never really left this city? You've been here the whole time? I mean, I know you lived in Seoul later on. We'll get to that, but you didn't do a summer camp in Jutland. You didn't do
not for that long, at least. So no, I really am one of the few Copenhageners. I think
it's funny because I came here as a kid, so this would be the mid and late '80s. I would come and visit, and I don't remember that much about Copenhagen, except for that all my memories of it. It's really dark at that time. Everything's so dark, and I think the city has changed a lot since then. Just in terms of people tell me there weren't even really that many cafes in the 90s or either, there was either smørrebrød places, like cheap places to eat, or really expensive places to eat. There was nothing in between. Okay. Have you noticed this sort of change or anything?
Well, when I was growing up, I spent most of my time at Nørrebrohallen.
Okay.
Where I played basketball. So, I mean, as I remember it, like my teenage years, I was commuting from home to Nørrebrohallen and back. That was kind of my life. So
that was
I was not the type who went to the cafes, but maybe that was because they didn't exist.
Right. Nørrebrohallen, you played. Was basketball your big thing when you were young?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Because I was really into sport when I was younger, and then I think also it was because that I grew up mostly with white people. My adoptive mother's white, and all her friends were white, and my friends were white, classmates and so on. Yeah. So when I started playing basketball, it was mostly, at the team, we were mostly girls who were not white. And I think that was kind of an important experience for me. And I remember, that we called each other things like perker, that would be paki, or slanted eyed, or, like these kind of discriminating words. But I think it was a way to, come to terms with the racism that we experienced in our like everyday life. So it was like people from Turkey, the former Yugoslavia, Albania, all over.
Right. Well, this neighborhood has always been the ethnic minority neighborhood in Copenhagen in a way. So basketball was, of course, interesting, but it was actually the group of people that you found that really was what was important. I think
it was important for me in many ways. Of course, because I love to play basketball, but also because that I met people and got friends who were not white, and I think that was kind of important. When I look back at it, I think that was important for me.
Right. Were you angry in those years?
Not as much as I were in Korea, I would say.
Is Korea where you really got angry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, every episode has a theme, and I'm thinking one of the themes here can be anger, and I don't mean just your anger in the book, but just kind of in general as a jumping off point. But I mean, do you remember your childhood as being pretty positive, or was it kind of tumultuous? Was it tough?
No, I mean, I had a pretty safe childhood, so in that way, I think it was pretty okay.
Yeah.
But of course, there were the things about racism and growing up as an adoptee, growing up as a lesbian. That of course is a challenge.
Yeah, I read in your book you had the part where you said, "Why couldn't I just be an adoptee or a lesbian? Why do I have to be both of these things?" It's just kind of funny, but not really. It's just really one of those things. The only thing you can do is laugh and go, "Well, this is the way it is." But did you? So you even knew your sexual orientation was a minority sexual orientation even then? Yeah,
I mean, I was pretty young when I felt attracted to girls. So maybe I was so young, so I didn't even know the word lesbian.
Right, what it meant.
But when I look back at it, I could see that I was attracted to girls from a very young age.
Yeah. Those, I mean, because the teenage years are confusing enough.
Yeah. So there was some stuff that makes it at least not easier for me when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
But it's, of course, at the same time, it's difficult to say that, okay, being both an adoptee and a lesbian makes it even more difficult. There's so many other circumstances that matters. But it did play a role, that's for sure.
I guess it's just more question marks. In your head, I'm kind of interested in talking, I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but about racism and sexism, because I'm not sure if it's because I'm dumb, inattentive, or just lucky. But when I was growing up, I grew up in a very white, wealthy area of California. Not dissimilar to Denmark. It was obviously America, but, safe, etc. And when I was in high school, I had a friend who came out as bisexual, and she had a couple of girlfriends and stuff. And she would tell me stories about what people would say to her. Horrible things they were saying to her. But no one was saying this stuff around me. I never actually heard it. And so I feel like I've led this kind of sheltered life. She would tell me who said it too. And I would know these people and be like, really? They say that? That? It really blows my mind. And I guess it's only because when you're in the position on the receiving end of that you really are the one who is aware. They're not screaming it out in public. They're finding times to say it to you privately. Was that your experience with it? I mean,
with racism, for example?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's it's being said in private, but I also remember times where we were more people were there. So for example, I remember, and that's also one of the scenes in the book, that I had a very good friend in school, and she experienced me being called yellow something, go home, and so on. And I remember that she told me that her father told her that if anyone discriminated me or said anything bad to me, then she was allowed to hit them. And she was she was a for her age, or at least among our other classmates, she was like a big girl, and she was pretty strong, so she could like hit the boys and so on. So
did she do it?
I can't remember, but what I really remember was that she told me that, and I really felt like that I felt so great about it, because of course, it's not, you can discuss whether or not it's good for parents to recommend a child to hit other children, right. but that she kind of protected me and would not allow this kind of racism to happen. Whereas my own adoptive mother, she would told me, oh, just ignore the people who are calling you those things,
That's such a tough thing to hear as a kid.
Yeah, they are the ones who are ignorant, and you shouldn't, right,
you should be better than them and just let them. That's so tough. I mean, because I got teased too in school, not a lot, but I did, and that was the message I got. Just ignore them. They're having they're just having a hard time, or they need to act out. They're not doing it because they don't like you. They're doing it because they're unhappy with their life.
Because they have some problems themselves, but...
Which is probably true, but when you're 8 years old, what the fuck do you care? You just want people to not say shit like that to you.
Yeah.
But I've often thought that it seems like, I think Denmark is a fairly racist country, but it seems to me like a lot of the racism here is just straight ignorance. It's not that they're actively anti, although I do think that is there, but it's more just like not knowing anything about, the kind of question like, I'm sure you've had this. Oh, you're Asian, so you probably can't digest alcohol as well as us Danes. That's sort of just ignorant racism, where it's not, they don't mean anything bad, they just don't know any better. Would you agree with me that that's the majority type of racism here? Or
definitely there's this that's very like common, that kind of racism. Yeah. But I think there's also like the kind of, I don't know how to what to call it, but colorblindness, that you wouldn't, that you are not very eager to see white as a color. Right. So white becomes this like kind of invisible color, and from that position you kind of point out all other people who do not pass as white. And that's for me like one of the main issues with Danish society in terms of race and questions about race. Yeah.
It's hilarious. They have like that their words for describing people from other places make me laugh. They have the directly translated Dane of other ethnic originality. What the fuck is that? Like ethnic, like, like the whole thing just makes me laugh. And I think Europe in general has this problem with like, what is, being American is not a group of people. American is a bunch of different people from all over the world who came to a country. There is no American race or ethnicity.
And when you talk about like an American, it's difficult to actually visualize what do an American look like. It's not that simple.
Aside from the fact that they're all fat, right?
That would be like the only thing that would be in common, you would have in common. That's true.
No, and there's that thing here where Danish is white, right? That's that's the accepted norm of Danishness. And
you don't say that loud, but that's kind of
that's the idea in your head, right?
Yeah.
It's like my girlfriend's Italian. She comes here, and for the first couple of years, she just looks around and goes, "God damn, why is everyone blonde? What the fuck's going on here?" And that's because there's a lot of blonde people here. That's and I think it's really interesting what you say about there being the color that is not a color is white, because it's the standard. It's the non-discussable. It's just like people at my work will say, "Oh, that black guy was here the other day," or like, it's a descriptor. You wouldn't say, a white guy just fell over on the street over there, but you might say a black guy just fell over on the street over there.
Or a person of color, know, another ethnical background than Danish. You have all these words to describe that this person is not white.
Right. Which is a strange state of affairs. And it's kind of it's what you deal with. Are you Danish? If someone asks you, are you Danish? The question is, well, or the answer is, well, kind of. Which is kind of my answer too, because I guess I'm kind of Danish, but not really. You know, I'm 50% of Danish. What did they say? Of other ethnic originality. But back to, you know, just to touch up on the racism thing, I think that, I mean, do you feel like it's getting better?
No, I don't.
Really?
And especially not after the what's it called?
The European elections?
Yeah, European elections, where it turned out that the Danish People's Party, became the biggest party in Denmark. No, I don't think.
This goes back to the question I had about like who's saying horrible shit to you. Like, where are these people? I don't understand. And maybe it's because I don't travel in Denmark enough. I mean, my family's from Northern Jutland. I don't just stay in Copenhagen. Where are these people? Do you think a lot of people are secret?
But I see it all times in the media and newspapers, you know. I mean, and there's these certain kinds or different kinds of racism, you know. There's the kind of everyday racism that a person of color can experience here, and racism among kids and so on. But also, you know, that saying that no, racism in Denmark doesn't exist. Structural racism in Denmark does not exist. For me, that's also, you know, a pretty tough statement to have, and to say that white is not a color. You know, I would not want to see myself as white. You know, we are all just humans. Right. For me, that's also part of that whole discussion about race.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, tough. It's in many levels. You can see how it's what we talked about, like how being a Dane and being white are so closely connected.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. The institutional racism. I may, in a careless moment, say Denmark doesn't have institutional racism. Why would you tell me why I'm wrong?
Well, what do you mean with the institutional racism?
I mean that in the country I come from, there's clear policies to put black people in jail more than white people. The way, let's say, drugs are classified and jail times that go along with drugs disproportionately set certain, it's not even black, it's actually more class, poor people. I feel like the US is institutionally very, very racist. And I don't know Denmark enough to know if it is or not.
I mean, I've been in this debate participating in this debate in the spring where we talked about whether or not structural racism existed in Denmark. And some people would say, no, it doesn't exist. And it's just like the very right-wing people here who are racist, but the majority of Danes are not racist. But I mean, for me, just saying, just what we talked about, that in the media, in the newspaper, you know, you all the time hear about stories where it's like a person with another ethnicity and so on. For me, that's also a sign of how race and racism works in Denmark.
Right. That makes sense. And again, I think it goes back to ignorance. In a way, I mean, in that case, like the way the newspapers write, it seems to me to be provincialism and ignorance more than it does to be like a structural law.
Yeah, you know, you just don't want to see Denmark as a racist society because you have this idea of Denmark that Danes being very tolerant. You know, also when it comes to adoption, you know, you have this idea that Denmark has received many children. From other countries.
Like that's a charity or something.
Yeah, you know, you see it as a charity, you know, that you're rescuing a child from a life in the streets or growing up in an institution or an orphanage. And, you know, so it's like a very clear example, some would say, of anti-racism in Denmark. And it shows how tolerant Danes are, that you take all these, that you adopt all these children that are, many of them are not white. But you can also turn it around and say, no, it's actually a sign of structural racism, or you can also say modern colonialism, because you have this idea that a non-white child would have better opportunities, would have a better life if it if he or she is adopted to a Western country, is
right,
growing
like
up in a white
life
family.
is shitty wherever you come from, so we'll take you somewhere not shitty. Is kind of a racist statement.
Yeah, it's like a product of what I would call structural racism.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that makes sense. I see what you mean. Before we get completely sidetracked, when did you start writing? Where did that come in?
I think I already when I was like in school, I wrote, of course I wrote poems, I wrote stories whenever I had time and so on to do that.
But where did it become serious?
I think that was when I went to the writer's school in 2001.
But you must have made a decision before then that you wanted to.
I mean, I applied to enter the school, but I think when I went there and I think it became more clear to me that I wanted to see if I could like make a career out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
How was writing school? I mean, I've been to art school, so I think it's maybe somewhat similar, but was it a good experience for you?
Yeah, in many ways. Especially, I got to know a lot of other people who are writing. I got, I was in a school where we were all like really dedicated to literature and so on, and
right, just focusing on it. It's
just
important,
focusing on
having
it.
a community.
Yeah, exactly.
How long is the school last?
It's 2 years.
Oh, it's only 2 years.
Only 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because there's the whole argument about whether you can teach art, etc. But I think 2 years is a very good amount of time. I mean, I've been looking at the art academy here. That's 6 years, and I'm just kind of like, oh my god, is that?
Yeah.
How many people go to the writer's school here?
I think it's around like 6 to 10 each year.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Very small.
Who are getting into the school, and then you have like a class together with the year before or after.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So it's pretty competitive.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's like the art school. It's not that easy to get in.
So I guess when you did get in, did you get in the first try?
Yeah.
Did you immediately think, yeah, I'm doing this. It's happening. I can do this,
I think I was just really, really glad that I got in and that I got to, that I got the opportunity to just focus on what I really wanted for 2 years.
Did anyone mentor you beforehand, or was it all on your own?
No. I went to this højskole. I don't know what's in English.
We don't really have it. It's kind of hard to describe. I talk about it in different episodes, but essentially it's education for the sake of education. Yeah, it's a school which doesn't have a plan or a goal. It's just there to make you a better person.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can choose different subjects.
Right, and they have it for all sorts of, art or theater or language or math or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then I chose a place where they have a very great tradition for literature. So that was kind of like first step towards like becoming a writer. Right,
because it's really, I mean, I think it's important to have some sort of like something to bounce things off of, if you're on your own, you don't, at least for me, I lack structure, I need rejection to get better, really. I need someone to say, no, that's not good enough. And I go, oh, right, it isn't good enough, I need to make this better. And that's like you slowly learn to be your own critic, but in the beginning, you just make shit. You just make shit, and, I guess that brings up the next question is when you were done with school, did you start writing your first book, or how did that?
Yeah, I did actually. It took me 2 years. But so actually some of the text in my first book, I already wrote at the writer's school. But then it took me 2 years after I graduated or whatever to finish it.
Did you write a lot about adoption in school?
Not a lot, but I did wrote some.
Did that interest come later? then? I mean...
No, I mean, it was already there at that time, but the two new books, they are, you know, just like totally focused on adoption, whereas my first book is like about adoption, but also like racism and like integration politics,
national identity,
yeah. You know, it's not just about adoption.
I love the piece you wrote about the the Danish guy and the immigrant guy getting in a fight, and then realizing that they both kind of think their other car is awesome. That whole thing, I really like that. You know, and you used a lot of humor, obviously. And I haven't read all of the new book, but there's less humor.
There's less
in the
humor.
New one. You're a lot more serious.
Yeah. There are also humor, I would say. There's this different kind of, as I see it, different kinds of anger. Different kinds of anger that are being expressed in the book. And there's also this kind of anger that's kind of, you know, idiosyncratic anger, because she's also angry that the airplane was invented. Because if the airplane wasn't invented, Korea couldn't have sent that many children to the West to get adopted. So it's like there's also these kind of, and the anger kind of goes in all directions, and also
and
towards
contradicts
herself.
Itself constantly.
Yeah, exactly. So that can kind of create a comic moment, I think.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And it's there's more deadpan irony.
Yeah.
You know, where some of the other stuff was overtly funny.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit more. I mean, it seems like it's very much more directed at internally, and like at the same time it's pulling in all directions now in a lot of ways. But we'll get to the book in a bit. Did you, after graduating, did you think, I am going to write a book and I'm going to publish it and I'm going to do this? Or did you think, fuck, now I have to work at McDonald's? Or what did you think?
I wanted to write a book.
You knew it?
Yeah.
How did you practically make that happen? I mean, you had to, I assume, get a job or something.
I had several jobs, like at that in those years, all kind of shitty jobs.
The kind of shitty jobs you do when you're trying to write a book or make artwork or something.
But that's also why it took me 2 years, you know, because I had to work also, just to earn money.
Yeah. Did you so you finished the book, and did you have a network you could tap into to try to get it published, or did you just have to pick up the phone and cold call people? Or
actually, my editor at that time, she heard me read at some kind of event, and she told me, if you want, please send me some text, because I think it's interesting. So when I finished the book, I decided to send it to her, because she already showed interest.
And they published it.
And what
was the publisher on that one?
Borgens Forlag.
Borgens Forlag, which is a big one.
Yeah, but which doesn't exist anymore, because they sold itself to Gyldendal.
Right, which is the biggest one in Denmark,
Which is the biggest, but that's not the publishing house where my new books are. It's at a much smaller publisher. Yeah.
When the book did come out, was there immediate attention then?
I got a lot of attention, and both me and my editor and the publishing house were very surprised.
They weren't expecting it.
And they didn't print that many copies, so they soon had to print more.
What do you think? Why did it get that attention? I mean, I'm not talking about why it's good, because it's clearly good, but like, what nerve did you hit in Denmark to bring it to the greater public?
I mean, we're talking about the first book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was about like, what it takes to be a Dane, you know, national identity, racism.
Do you think this was fairly new for them?
At that time, there was a huge debate, and I guess it's still there, but it's still here, but it's not that new anymore. But it was, I don't know if it was new, but it was newer than now, about all these things that I actually wrote about in my book.
Well, I guess it also kind of corresponds with the political climate changing, where the Danish Folk Party, the nationalistic party, started gaining more and more power, and some particularly heinous laws like the 24-year rule and those kind of things came into effect.
Medkasseordning.
What's
I don't
that?
know what you call it in English. But you had this law where refugees, they didn't get their own money to buy food, but they got like this package each. I think it was each every 14 days.
Oh wow!
And it was like it's really like the basic thing. So I wrote about that also in my book.
Oh,
so
man,
you have
I didn't know about that.
these really strange laws, and they tried this Medkasseordning for a while, and it just didn't work out, so they skipped it. But
I've seen pictures of bags of food at refugee centers. That was probably that. I didn't catch that one. So was that was specifically a law to try to make life worse for refugees?
That's how I see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what was the?
Or make it like it's when you get like. When you don't get your own money, so you can choose your own food, you have
to eat Danish food.
Yeah, you're not treated as an individual with like individual habits and tastes and so on.
Right, or free choice.
Yeah, free choice.
In
exactly,
what you eat,
exactly.
It's like a prison then.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty wild. I didn't know that. But see, you wrote this book and it hit something and it came out and people paid attention. And was it shocking to you to all of a sudden
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't expected that it got that much attention. So in that way, it was kind of a big surprise.
Well, I mean, then all of a sudden you're a figure for debate. People are talking about your book to make points that either you might or might not agree with. It becomes part of the debate and it's out of your control then.
And it was used in many, debates, not only literary debates, but also like political debates. Politicians, they wrote also from my book, and the schools, they bought it. I think they're still buying it. So it's like very broad in a way, which was very surprising for both me and my editor, that it could reach such a big audience actually, because it's like in terms of genre, it's like it's not a novel, it's like kind of a mix between different genres. So that's like what you would here in Denmark call a small book.
Right. Well, it is, physically a small book.
In small book.
Yeah, what do you...
I don't know it's not a small
book. A novelle? No, what would it be? A pocket book, I guess maybe you'd call it. I'm not sure.
No, but I don't think it's a pocket book. It's a book that doesn't sell that much.
Right, okay, right. Like kind of an interest piece or something.
Yeah.
I read in your new book about some of the responses you got. Someone wrote you an anonymous letter that said absolutely shitty things, and that's again one of those situations where I'm just sitting there being like, who goes to the trouble to write this sort of thing? The message essentially was, you're shitty, you should move back to Korea. That's what I understood out of it. Was that hard to be in that position? I mean, here you are trying to deal with racism, and then you opened yourself up to be a target in a racism debate.
Yeah, I remember when I got that letter, it was not, I got a little, I got actually pretty shocked also because it was like a physical letter. So it's like, it's kind of intimidating to get a letter like that. And there was no, I couldn't see who sent the letter.
Right.
So I was like, who is this? And I got like, actually a little frightened, what do they want? What do that person want?
What are they capable of?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I experienced it also with my new books that I got some like emails about like, you should be grateful, have growing up here, but you're not, please go home to Korea or leave this country. So, but this time, I was prepared for it. So I wasn't prepared when my first book got out.
Trial by fire, as they say. Yeah. I think I'm naive. I must be naive. I don't know. It just seems so so out there. I mean, I can understand the desire to hurt somebody, and I can understand using. I can't understand believing what they're saying, but I can understand being angry and knowing that would hurt somebody. But actually believing that, like actually believing you should go home to Korea, like Korea is just easily packaged as home for you. You know, like that makes so little sense that it just makes me wonder, you know, what is the true goal of this?
But I mean, I would say overall, both with my first book and the two books I just published, I mean, I got very, very positive like feedback, and the reviews have been great, and so
yeah, and people engaged. And
people engaged, and they buy the books, and yeah.
So did that enable you to have some freedom to think about what was next then? I mean, you didn't have to work shitty jobs anymore, I assume. I know you got some state support.
I got some state support. That's also why I could go to Korea and stay there, you know, just focus on my writing for such a long time.
Did you go to Korea right after or not right after, but pretty soon after finishing Fine Hold Gdansk?
A year after it came out. Yeah, I went to Korea.
Did you move there to write a book?
I moved there for two reasons. I moved there because I had gotten contact with my birth family, so I wanted to get to know them better. So I thought, okay, I have to go there and spend some time with them. And then also I got to know some adoptees who were critical of adoption, and I was like really surprised. I mean, I did know about adoptees being critical of adoption, but still it was quite new to me, and I just had this feeling that I have to go back and talk with them more. So that was mainly the two reasons why I went. But I was supposed just to be there for like half a year, but then I ended up like extending my stay there. So I ended up living in Korea for like more than 3 years.
It's a long time.
It is a long time, yeah.
How's your Korean?
Oh, it's like so bad.
But can you function?
I can't even get around, really. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can order food at a restaurant, but that's basically it.
Did you go to classes for it or anything?
I went to university, to language classes, and I actually really liked to study Korean, but I was writing my books, and I was, with my friends. I mostly spoke English with my friends there, so it was like I felt it was too much to have like navigate between 3 languages.
I think that's a problem that a lot of people who move here have. A lot of people who come here as adults don't end up really learning Danish.
No,
because A, they don't have to. You can function for the most part fine with English, but B, because that is that weird navigation of trying to go about your life in other languages and then learn a new one, and you'll probably get a job not speaking Danish, that whole thing. Yeah. But what did you like living there?
In some ways I did, and in some ways I didn't. I mean, it was a tough time, but also because it was a long first of all, it was like a process, and coming to terms with lots of things about like being an adoptee, and my view on adoption totally changed when I was there, and that was like a huge thing for me,
right.
I grew up with this idea that adoption was a good thing, and you're saving a child from growing up in an orphanage and so on, and then I met these adoptees and became part of a community of Korean adoptees who had moved back to Korea and had a very critical perspective on adoption, and like that was a big thing for me that I could not believe in adoption anymore in the same way I could when I was a child or when I was a teenager.
It's kind of a transformation.
It was a transformation, and also I kind of in a crisis. I see the years in Korea as like years where I was in like a existential crisis.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, you're also living in a foreign country. We have to remember that you didn't grow up there. So
I mean, all the practical stuff, the language barriers, the cultural barriers, all that were there as well.
Right,
but then on top of that, there's also like like the things about being an adoptee and confronting myself with lots of things.
Right. So what is it about adoption? I mean, I've never really thought about whether adoption is bad or not bad. What is it about adoption that this group is critical of?
It's many things, but like some of the people in that community that I was part of, they tried or are still trying to build up alternative to transnational adoption. So, for example, helping single mothers to raise their own child instead of having to send it overseas, because there's still a stigma against single mothers in Korea, and the government support is not that great. But so there's some people there, adoptees, and also people who are not adoptives, who trying to like advocate for single mothers' rights.
Right. And it's also, I mean, is it still a society where sons are preferred to daughters?
It was, but actually it changed.
Okay.
And I heard from a friend that actually more and more they want a daughter because they think a daughter is like, I think more trustful and, would take better care of them, of the parents when they get old.
And a bunch of shitty boys, and then they change their mind.
Yeah.
But, so it seems like this critical group is actually kind of focused on Korea, not transnational adoption worldwide.
I mean, it's focusing on Korea, but some of the issues surrounding adoption from Korea is also very like, or you can see that in other countries, that what's happens in other countries too. But I think, I usually prefer just to talk about adoption in a Korean context because I don't know enough about like Ethiopia to actually say what's going on there.
When did you get angry?
I was very angry in those years in Korea. Yeah, because it's like as the more I got to know about adoption, the more I read about it. I read lots of books and articles and so on. My book is also like based on a huge material of research. And meeting other adoptees, hearing their stories and so on, it kind of made me even more angry.
Was it angry at everything, or was it angry specifically about adoption in this case? Or I mean, because anger obviously goes along with crisis. If you're having a time of crisis, existential, questions, you're probably angry too. I don't think it's fun for anybody to go through that sort of thing.
But I think as I spoke about before, there's like certain or different kinds of anger in my book. So there's also this kind of anger that might really be grief, or where grief is expressed through anger. Right. And it's both like a grief because the she in the book is had been separated from her birth family and so, but it's also like the kind of grief that has to do with the political. In the book, I talk about it as an ideological grief. Right. About losing faith in adoption, in the adoption system, suddenly seeing it more as an industry where some people are trying to earn money. So, and then there's this anger that's more like an indignation, maybe, where you are angry because some kind of injustice has been done to someone that you care for, or right.
And I mean, there's so much to be angry about in the world, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's not surprising, the more you know about certain things, and I think there are some extremely unethical adoption companies out there who really are. You hear every once in a while about children being forced essentially into adoption and taking advantage of poor people and all this sort of stuff. But at which point did the anger become useful for you?
I mean, I wrote 2 books, so in that way it became a way for me to produce text. But at the same time, I think also writing about anger or the kind of like the feeling of anger, writing on the feeling of anger also kind of made me more angry. So it was like, it was like, I came to terms with my own anger writing about it, but also it produced actually also even more anger.
Sure. If you go to that place, it's going to inspire, it's going to inform your life in that way. It's interesting though, because I went to the opening or the release party for your book, and I heard and saw you read up, and I took a couple of notes and I was kind of thinking about it, and you don't sound very angry.
No.
While you're doing it, it actually sounds more like a chant or a magic spell or something that you're doing, which, strikes me as, I don't want to say ritualistic, but you've structured the book in a way which comes out.
It's very repetitive.
It's very repetitive, and so it makes it kind of chant-ish almost.
Yeah. I mean, each piece begins with "she's angry,"
right?
And
there's
like
short sentences for the most part. Did you at a certain point have to distance yourself from that anger?
I mean, I think writing about it and having to create a form where that anger can be expressed is a way to distance yourself, but at the same time a way also to keep being angry. So it's like both things at the same time.
Did it also function as a way of healing yourself?
I wouldn't say that, but it was a way to come to terms with the experiences I had in Korea. But healing, I'm not sure.
I would say coming to terms with is at least the beginning of healing. I mean, I heard something interesting recently that healing hurts. We have to remember that. If you break your leg, the process of healing hurts. And healing is usually such a positively, you think of rests and relaxation and stuff. No, fucking healing hurts, And that's what healing is. It's making something bad better, But I mean, are you still just as angry?
No, but that's also because in Korea I was in a like crisis, and it's like it was a very special time in my life. So when I got back here, of course it took me a while to like readjust to Denmark again. But no, I'm not that angry anymore.
Was it nice?
I mean, of course, I can still be angry about many things. Everyone can.
Sure.
But
you don't have 250 pages of anger in you anymore.
Let's see. Maybe I'm thinking about my next book being she's more angry.
She's angrier. Oh my goodness. That's awesome. I mean, why not? If it worked, I think it's a very mature work, and I think it really, it's powerful. You can feel that, but I'm really happy that it doesn't sound angry because I don't know, like when I hear music that's angry, it's rare that music functions to the listener. It may be a great place for the person who's angry to get it out, but they may just be spewing hate, anger out into the world, and it may make them feel better, but it's not a piece of art necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, that's that weird step for me, is that it doesn't feel angry. It feels like you have dealt with it in a way.
I mean, I guess it is angry, but it's also other things, and there's many layers of feelings. I mean, there's also grief and anxiety, and there's a lot of other belonging and
right. And it took you a long time to write this book too, right?
Yeah, it took me 7 years. Yeah, there was so much to be angry about. So,
I mean, I guess did you write whole things and then have to throw them away and start over because the nature of what you were trying to do changed in your mind?
No, actually not. But it took me also a while to actually structure it because as I see it, it's like For me, it's like a long poem, so I had to kind of, and I just wrote like these pieces like separately, and then I had to like put them together, and that took a long time to do that, to structure it in the right way. And there's also, a kind of narrative structure in the book. So there's some pieces that had to come before other pieces.
Right. And it seems thematic too, that you're dealing, there's so many things to be angry about, and you're taking them one at a time in a way. But why did you write it in third person? Why isn't it I am angry?
Because I think it was a way to distance myself, because but also because that I think the she, it points, or it like it points out the gender, and to me, like, adoption from Korea has very much to do with gender. So I wanted to, I think that's the reasons.
Is it you though?
Is
she you?
No, I mean, there's very many similarities between me and she, but it's not like 100% me. And it's like, I collected lots of stories from other adoptees too. So it's like, I see it also as kind of a choir, maybe. Lots of voices, lots of different stories. And some of these stories, I wrote about in my book, that she experiences might have been in reality another adoptee who experienced that. And,
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's also a good step to take if you're talking about a time in your life in which you were with a group of people discussing, debating, what you felt about this situation. Were people back in Denmark supportive while you were gone? And
some people, some people I lost when I was writing this book, or when I was living in Korea, but some people are still my very good friends today. So for some people it was easier than for others to understand the process I went through, and to understand the new perspective I got on adoption. And for other people it was very it was not easy at all.
Right. Are you not going to? Do you feel like you've done something, and do you feel like you've reached some sort of point with adoption, or do you feel like there's just so much more to go on with?
I mean, there's so much more, but I'm, at least for the moment, I'm not going to write a new book that I spend so much time and energy on. I need to, have a break.
Right.
But of course, there will always be lot of stuff to write about adoption, I think. And I just went to Greenland, where, they have a lot of national adoption or domestic adoption.
Do they?
Or especially, I think especially earlier on, but they have a long history of domestic adoption. So that could be interesting also to know more about, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess domestic adoption is in theory preferable.
Yeah, I mean, most people would agree with that. Yeah.
But then again, there probably aren't that many Danish babies that need adoption or are put into adoption, however you want to describe it.
I think it's like around, or it might be less than 20 per year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, of Danish children being adopted to Danish families.
And there's probably a lot of families who want a baby who is blonde. Okay, well, do you want to read up a little bit for us? Read whatever you like, whatever you feel like sharing.
Okay.
By the way, the photos in Finn Holger Danske appendix are great.
You think so?
I love them.
Okay, that's great.
And I see the humor in them too.
Yeah.
What that I assume is your biological parents?
Yeah.
Is that in Korea?
That's in Korea. That's actually at Jeju Island.
What is that? Like some sort of horse riding camp for people?
Yeah, but we went to this like, I think it was 2 days trip, me and my parents. And we had to, it was like this tourist trip. So we had to see lots of things like within these 2 days. And one of the things was that we had to go on this horseback riding thing.
It looks like it could be Nevada or something. It's just so funny.
Yeah. It was like really, really strange, surrealistic experience.
I imagine.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. She's angry with her older sister for telling her that she should learn to speak Korean. She's angry with herself for not learning to speak Korean. Now's the time she ought to learn it while her biological parents are still alive. If she doesn't start learning Korean until her book is finished, it might be too late, particularly when you consider how long it's taking her to write a book. She's angry with her older sister for thinking that she's being lazy. Doesn't her sister understand that writing is a full-time job? That it's not something you can do with your left hand, and particularly not after studying Korean for several hours during the day? She's angry with her older sister for suggesting that she study Korean during the day and write at night. When exactly had her sister imagined that she would sleep, if she might ask? On the bus to and from university? Her sister might be able to get by without sleep, but she can't. She needs at least 7 hours of sleep every night. She's angry that she needs at least 7 hours of sleep every night. She's angry with herself for studying Korean. Anyway, that's not the way to learn a language, she thinks. You don't learn to speak Korean by burying your head in a book. It would be better, she thinks, if she found a flatmate who couldn't speak English, or better yet, a girlfriend. Then she would be forced to speak Korean. She's angry for not being forced to speak Korean. She's angry for being forced to speak Korean. She's angry for unwittingly finding herself in the role of class clown when she's out with Mi-jung and her friends who don't speak English. She's angry that Mi-jung's friend don't speak English. She's angry that she doesn't speak Korean. She's angry with her biological family for not spending more time with her. That would be another good way for her to learn to speak Korean. She's angry with herself for feeling guilty about not learning to speak Korean. There's no point in learning to speak Korean, she thinks, if her biological family doesn't even have time to see her. She only wanted to learn Korean in the first place so that she would be able to speak to them. She's angry with her older sisters for not learning to speak English. She's angry with her older sisters that not one of them is learning to speak English. She's angry that she's the one who has to learn a foreign language if she wants to be able to speak to her biological family without an interpreter. She's angry that she can't communicate with her own mother without an interpreter. She's angry that she can't communicate with her own father without an interpreter. She's angry with Warren for not translating word for word what her biological father says. She's angry with Warren for not translating word for word what her biological mother says. She's angry with Warren for not translating word for word what she says. She's angry with Warren for translating her words in a way that Warren thinks would be to the benefit of her and her biological family. She's angry with her oldest sister for not wanting anyone other than Warren to interpret for them. Now that she had decided to tell her biological family that she's a lesbian. She had even asked Mi-jung if she would interpret for her because there's no way she could imagine Warren trying to explain to her biological parents what it means to be a lesbian. She found out from Laurent that according to Warren, she must have had a bad childhood since she's a lesbian. She's angry with Warren for thinking that she had had a bad childhood since she's a lesbian. It may be that Warren is Christian, but just because you're a Christian, it doesn't give you the right to come to that kind of conclusion, she thinks. She's angry with herself for even wanting to tell her biological parents that she's a lesbian. There's no point in telling them something, she thinks, that they wouldn't be able to understand anyway. I don't know how much I should
Great. It's great. And I'm really thinking also that, like, there's a lot of humor in that. There is a lot of humor in that.
Especially maybe when I read it.
Yeah, because you can hear it. Because when you're saying these things which are very serious, and then you immediately go over to she is angry because this happened, or she's angry because she can't deal with this, or she's angry, you know. It's this push-pull, and it goes tack, 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 back and forth. And, you know, I think that functions really well. Is the book translated into English?
No, it's just an excerpt that has been translated.
Oh, I
really hope it will be translated.
Well, the thing is, it works really well in English because translations in and of themselves are kind of difficult.
Yeah.
But I've heard it now in both languages.
Yeah.
And it works great in English.
Okay.
There's no problem with the translation. It sounds like you could have written it originally in English.
Okay, that's great. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of course one of the disadvantages of Danish is there's only 5 million people
but
in the world.
That's like my big hope is to get it translated into both English and also I would really love to have it translated into Korean also.
Right.
Because adoption is also part of Korea's history, so
right.
So that's important to me.
And people who your network there, it sounds like you don't like communication's difficult, so they probably can't read your book. Must be frightening though too if you open up that world.
Yeah, for Korean audience.
Yeah.
But I tried to do some readings in Korea. I did some readings together with a Korean composer. So we did like these readings / concerts, and that was really interesting.
Were they receptive?
Sometimes we did it like several times, and I remember especially one of the places we did it in this art gallery, and most of the audience were like middle-aged people, Korean people, and it was kind of too much because I kind of talked about too many taboos in Korean society, so I just felt that they kind of they couldn't take it.
They didn't know what to do.
But we did it also at other venues where it really worked well, and people were very I got a lot of good feedback and positive feedback. Yeah.
So what do you need to do to get it translated? Do you need to find a publisher in the country?
A publisher, yeah. If I want to get it published in Korea, I could get it published in English or in Korean. But if it's going to be published in Korean, I have to have it translated probably through English or through a third language.
Right, there must be a lack of Danish Korean translators.
So that's kind of the problem.
Well, English makes a lot of sense in that it's close enough to Danish that it functions really well. In this case, I couldn't tell you about Korean, of course, but it works really well in English, like I said, and also it opens up for such a bigger audience.
And also, I would love to have, that the book can be read by like adoptees from all over the world, and
sure.
Then I have to have it translated into English. But the difficult thing is to find a publisher in either the US or the UK.
Right.
But
that's the thing. That's the thing, because it's like art. You can't just send them something.
No.
Do you want to read up from the other one? Mm-hmm. What's this from?
From the other book that just came out, Finding Holger Dane Appendix.
Okay.
Yeah. 20 new questions for myself. 1. Do you like your biological parents? 2. Do you wish you had grown up with your biological parents instead of your adoptive mother, or are you relieved that this was not the case? 3. Are you able to forgive your biological parents for giving you up for adoption? 4. Has meeting your biological parents affected your relationship with your adoptive mother? And if yes, how? 5. If you feel angry about being adopted, at whom do you direct your anger? A. Your biological parents. B. Your adoptive mother. C. The South Korean adoption agency that handled your adoption. D. The Danish adoption agency that handled your adoption. E. Market forces, i.e. you consider international adoption an industry. F. The South Korean government. G. The Danish government. H. Korean culture. I. Other. Please feel free to underline more than one answer. 6. In your opinion, should one only be allowed to adopt a child with the same racial background? And if yes, 7. If the child is mixed race, must the prospective parents have the same racial background as the biological mother or the biological father, or both the biological mother and the biological father, in order to be allowed to adopt the child? 8. Do you take after your biological parents, both physically and with regard to personality? And if yes, do you feel attached to them because you are alike? 9. Do you wish you had never contacted your biological parents? 10. Do you consider using your Korean name, and if yes, A, for practical reasons, B, for political reasons, C, for personal reasons? Okay, do you want me to read, I can read a little from these questions for my biological mother? Actually, it was those I wanted to read.
Okay.
20 questions for my biological mother. 1. Do you wish I had never contacted you? 2. If I return to Denmark, A, will you be disappointed? B, will you be relieved? 3. Are you disappointed that I was adopted to Denmark and not the US as you have always believed? 4. Should you have not given me up for adoption, what consequences do you imagine it would have had for my sisters, my father, and yourself? 5. Do you love my biological father? 6. Do you wish you had given one of my sisters up for adoption instead of me? And if yes, whom? 7. According to the traditional Korean mindset, the woman is to blame if a married couple does not conceive any boys. Do you think the blame is just? 8. Do you look down on other women who have given a child up for adoption? And if yes, do you think other people have the right to look down on you? 9. If you had not been poor when you gave me up for adoption, would you then have kept me even if I was not a boy? 10. Have you told me the true reasons for giving me up for adoption?
That sounded great.
Okay, good.
Final question. Do you have any answers? You got a lot of questions, but have you found any answers along the way?
Some answers, but also, new questions pop up all the time.
That's how it is. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We really enjoy the performative part of that, the fact that she read up for us. You can catch her here in Copenhagen doing readings. We're going to put a link to her website. I know she's also posting on Facebook where she's doing readings if you want to catch some of that. You can also find her book. We're going to put links up to all of that. It's an excellent book. I got nothing else to say with that. It took a long time for her to make, 7 years. And you can feel that when you read it. It's well crafted. And like I said during the intro, it's really not about trying to express anger. It's about the topics that she's tackling. That's the focus, and that's what makes the book interesting. You're not just dealing with one person's issues around a certain set of topics. You're dealing with issues and then a group of people's relationship to that. Yeah, so the thing I'm trying to take away from all this is learning how to use anger as a tool. Anger can be a powerful force, and it also can be part of, being emotionally healthy. You cannot swallow everything. You can't just internalize it. As one of our favorite comedians, Bill Burr, says, you just got to cry it out in the shower, or else you're just going to end up slumped over while you're mowing the lawn one day. I think it's particularly hard for men to show their emotions, but, we're getting there. We as a society are becoming more and more open to that. So that's it. I'm in town for the next week and a half, and then I'm off on some summer vacation type of stuff. Gonna go visit some family, and we're gonna keep you guys supplied with episodes to listen to there for your summer vacation or wherever you might be. So that's pretty cool, huh? Could you do us a favor though? If you are enjoying this show, if you are checking it out, could you tell a friend? Could you tell an enemy? Could you put it up on your Facebook or your Twitter or something? We'd really appreciate it. There's about 95,000 podcasts out there, so we could really use your help getting the word out, if you enjoy it, of course. We're constantly trying to get better. We think it's working. We're taking steps forward. We'd love to have more people listening to the show. All right, this week's episode produced once again by the Undergang Unlimited. Intro and outro music by MGT Beats. You can catch a link to MGT Beats on our About page on our beautiful, beautiful website. Check it out. We are at undergang.net. Got a new site up there. It's looking real nice. You can email us, holler@undergang.net. That would be HOLLER, holler@undergang.net. Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us who you want on the show. Tell us we smell bad. Whatever you got to do, tell us. You can find us on Twitter. The Undergang is our handle on Twitter. We've been telling you every week, clearly the best social media out there, bar none. We've had a couple of requests about how to listen to the show in a better manner rather than on the website, which you can, of course, but it's really much better to get an app or use iTunes or something like that. So you can find on our website, there's a subscribe button. You can subscribe via iTunes. You can find us on Stitcher. There are apps you can download to listen to the show, like the podcast app from Apple. Stitcher has an app. And we, hopefully in the future, will even have our own app. So stay tuned for that. Bang, that is it. I wish you guys happy warm weather, unless you're down in the southern hemisphere. And then I wish you a happy winter. Congratulations to Germany for winning the World Cup. Y'all motherfuckers deserved it. Enjoy that. Cool guys, catch you next week.